Sorry, Mariwala, thanks so much for joining me. Your journey is well chronicled, and I've spoken to you many times around it. How you entered a family-owned business, discovered the virtues of branding, and created Marico. What are the turning points, the milestones in this whole journey?
Oh, I think how many turning points do you need?
Which are the ones that really played?
I think I would say 4 or 5 turning points. First is formation of Marico was one of the biggest turning points for me. I would say that would be the biggest, because that gave me a lot of freedom to build a company which could give thrust to consumer products as against a company which had different businesses. It gave me freedom to choose my own team and to drive my own destiny. Also the allocation of resources, whatever money I was generating could be plowed back in the business. So to me that has been the biggest turning point, if you ask me. And post that, I think the second turning point would be when we went public in the year 1996, because going public is a completely different ballgame. Quarterly pressures, working with the board of directors, analysts, investors, expectations, image building. So I think the organization has to gear itself to being a public company. Is very, very different, and I think many promoters don't realize what it means to go public. It has its benefits, but it could have its downsides also. But it has also great benefits, and I don't have any regrets of going public. In fact, it's a good thing which has happened. So second would be public. The third would be starting a completely new business like a Kaya business, and going through a huge learning curve. We have made a lot of mistakes in Kaya, but we had that persistence in terms of, okay, at some stage the business will turn around. And we still go through a huge learning curve. It's a very difficult business to manage, because it's a combination of 3 different businesses. It has hospitality, it has medical, and it has spa-like wellness. Wellness. So to combine these 3 into one entity is very tough. To manage doctors, their expectations, their way of working. So I would say the Kaya has been a big high for me in terms of, it's a big discontinuity for me. And the fourth big discontinuity would be my role. I stepped down as managing director from 1st of April 2014. So that has been a very big discontinuity, because my role has changed completely. So I would say these are the 3-4 milestones for me in my journey.
So that's wonderful. I think the one big lesson that Marico has shown is the power of branding, right? You are in a business where some of the biggest multinational companies have been. You've managed to take a commodity and connect it to people through the branding exercise. What are the learnings when you did that? What are the learnings? Because there haven't been as many successful FMCG brands as they could have been in a vibrant market like India.
See, I think first of all, for us, portfolio choice is very important. So what are the areas where we are going to enter? Do we have a right to win in those areas? So if you look at our portfolio of products, almost in 90% of our total turnover, we don't fight with any MNC. So basically, we have identified the right categories where we have a right to win. To me, that is the most important step. You need to identify the right category. Now, if I get into something where MNCs are very active, and there are not one, but there are 3 or 4 MNCs like shampoos, and each one having a 3 brands each, then it's very difficult for me to succeed against them, because of whatever R&D work they're doing on a global scale, the kind of money they're putting in, because they're viewing it from a global mindset. So we decided consciously not to get into certain categories where we had a lower right to win. So in shampoos, we have a presence in anti-lice shampoo, where they are not present. It's a small segment, it's a niche. So if we occupy that segment, then we can hold on to it. So I would say the first thing is to identify the category you are in. After that, I think the key thing is, what are the consumer benefit you're likely to give? And it should be very simply understood. This brand stands for, say, Heart, Saffola, or Parachute stands for nourishment. And after identifying that, continuously reinforce that benefit over a period of time. And I'm presuming that it is cutting ice with the consumers. The third thing is to innovate, go on. So innovations happen not necessarily to product, but through packaging, through advertising, through trade merchandising, through sales. So go on taking steps on innovation so that whenever some competition comes in, you're always 2 steps ahead of that competition. Because in our case, competition comes in directly from some other player. It can come in indirectly through modern trade, where you fight with private labels, and now there is e-commerce and they also have their private labels. So when you fight against them and when they are a low price player, if you are actually innovating and doing something on a perpetual basis, then I think you are always 2 steps ahead of them. And I think that also is relevant for the consumer. I also find that wherever the brands have a certain purpose, I think it really overall strengthens the brand. And I'll give you an example of Saffola. Our purpose is to go beyond selling Saffola to our franchise. So basically, can we actually help our franchise and others also to lead a lifestyle which is good for the heart? So we do Saffola Heart Day, we have heart care checkup camps, we have cholesterol checkup, free cholesterol checkups, all basically popularizing things like walking, smoking, non-smoking, things like that. So the brand actually has a larger purpose in terms of improving and using this lifestyle, preventive lifestyle, to reduce the heart.
Marico, in many senses, is a product of liberalized India in that context. The way you set it up. My question to you is that how have you seen the FMCG sector change? Because while global MNCs have more local than most, they've got great penetration. Companies like yours have gone into Middle East and Africa. And there are a whole bunch of new brands which are coming bottoms up. So how do you see this whole, is it more segmentation, more competition? How do you see it change?
So I think there are different types of players in the industry. First of all, there is MNCs, and a few newer MNCs have come in, and then there are larger Indian players, and then there are smaller regional and local players. So I think some of the players who were relatively smaller, they have become larger. So I think player like Imami, or now even the Jyoti Labs, they were earlier smaller, they have now a national presence. And then there are some regional players like Kevin Care is a more a south player, or there are some other regional players like Kesh King or Indulekha or whatever. There are smaller brands which are present in certain parts of the country, and I think it's a matter of time they have been able to add value. A company like Proudest, which built brands, it's got sold, but it came on its own. So I find that wherever there is innovation which is done by the Indian player, and wherever they have gone into certain categories where they have a right to win, and where the MNCs are not present, I think that those are the categories where Indians are winning more. And now you see in ITC also, now they've entered the category, and now they are in the large players. So ITC you can call Indian, you can call MNC. I think it's more Indian than MNC. So overall competition is increased in the category, and the entry costs have increased substantially, because if you have to advertise, and if you have to advertise nationally, a campaign which you have to spend at least 20-30 crores to launch a product. And more importantly, you need to have a distribution network, because if you are a new player, then it's a chicken and egg situation. And unless you have offtakes, you will not get distribution. Unless you have distribution, you will not get offtakes. So you have to go in a gradual manner. You can't just go all out, and if you are a new player, because you just will not be able to build it. You cannot get distributors. So the route to success cannot happen within a period of 6 months, 1 year. It is a 5-10 year journey before you build that scale. You build that scale from the distribution point of view as well as from the brand point of view.
Yeah, a lot of the challenge and the fight is on the ground, so to say. I'm going to ask you a question. When you see young professionals coming into the sector, are they coming with the right skill sets, Mr. Mariwala? Do they have the right connect, or do they take a long time to really understand the business? How have you seen the people who are entering the profession change?
See, I think we take a lot of management trainees every year. We take about 15 to 17 management trainees every year. So they come, they are bright students. They don't come with, most of them don't have any experience. So I think it is for us to mold them. It is for us to teach them. It is for us to ensure that they learn from working with us. So they don't come with a background, frankly, because they are fresh. And actually we prefer that, because otherwise and it's just not that we are only recruiting from the management school. We are also recruiting laterally. But most of the lateral recruitment is within the industry. That means if I take somebody from manufacturing, supply chain, I get it from one of the other players, So I think it's okay. I think most of the overall quality of talent in this sector is, I would say, is much better than most other sectors. That's why we find that the FMCG talent is able to get a job easily in other sectors. Our salaries also, I would say, are on the higher end. So there would be the highest level would be more like consulting companies, and after that, I think FMCG will be at the higher end in terms of the overall salaries we give to our talent. But in spite of that, and the others have realized, whether it's durables or some other industry, that the quality of talent in FMCG is good. So many times, the talent goes outside, and I think we become like a training ground for others, which is okay, Yeah.
Okay. You spoke about the mistakes that you've made and how you learned from them. I'm going to ask you, what are the 2-3 mistakes that you learned from that you would like to highlight, where you really thought you learned some great management lessons?
I think one is in the initial phases. I'm talking of when you are a small entrepreneur, you tend to do things on your own. And at that time you want to, because you're small, you are, I would almost call it penny-wise, pound-foolish, You want to save on overheads, you don't want to recruit talent. And in that, many a time when you start taking shortcuts, for example, you don't want to have a quality assurance function, you don't want to have a in-house legal function. In the initial phases, we paid a price for it because we wanted to save. And something backfired on the quality front, or something backfired on the compliances front, and actually we were put back, So I think it's very important that the building blocks are there in place, and one should not cringe in terms of investing money which will improve the building blocks, So I think that was one set of mistakes, that you need to have the right building blocks before you expand, because if you expand without the building blocks, then it can put you back. So at one level you are getting speed, and the same thing I can apply for Kaya also, and all of a sudden in our quest for growth we just expanded very fast, and we realized that we made many mistakes in terms of locations we chose and the talent we had recruited, and led to a lot of pressure selling. And again, looking back, it put us back by 2-3 years. Though the business may have increased in that 1 or 2 years, but it has actually put us back. So I think it's very important that, especially in sectors where you are dealing with consumer, whether it's direct consumer like Kaya or indirectly through products, it's very important that you have the necessary building blocks in place before you grow. So I think that's one learning. Number 2, talent is the most important. At least to me, everything is talent. In FMCG, you create brand out of nothing. I can get that same product manufactured from somebody else. I don't need to put in any capital investments. And that talent creates advertising. So if the talent is good, and if you create the right culture for the talent to grow, I think that will have a big, big impact on the organization. So I would say my learnings have been more in the area of processes, improving building blocks, in recruiting excellent quality talent, and for that you also need what we call employee value proposition. So organization has to be known and respected in the marketplace, in the HR market, saying that this is a good organization to work for. And if I can give that assurance to people that it's a good organization to work for, I can attract that kind of talent. So attraction of talent, retention of talent is very, very crucial for success, especially in FMCG, but I also think that every organization needs to have the best quality talent.
How important is for the talent to keep pace? Because when you say speed, it's all about the fact is that it's a very competitive landscape, and you have to really hit the ground running. How important is it for talent to keep pace with what's happening, and how do organizations facilitate that?
So I think it's important that, because I wouldn't say that one should act in a hurry, because the stakes are very big in this. So agility is important, and especially if you are young, and I think the agility is there. But what happens, I think the bigger problem one faces is when you expand a lot. If you're a 100 crore company, if you're a 1,000 crore company, if you're a 5,000 crore company, the talent required at the top or senior level has to be a very different type, because the guy who was at 100 crores may not just be fit enough to do it at 1,000 crores. So because the mindset is very different, At 100 crore you're doing things, at 1,000 crores you're getting things done. At 5,000 crore you're influencing others, you're not even getting things done. So your mindset has to change completely. Many times I've seen that a team worker who was excellent at one stage when we were small almost becomes non-performer when we are medium. And so I think that leads to, again, a certain situation where it's better for that person to go out rather than allowing it to continue. It has its short-term pains, but long-term it's good for the organization. I think we should do something which is good for the organization.
That's wonderfully put when you say companies moving from small to medium to large. But as managers move up the ranks, Mr. Mariwala, it doesn't become just about managing a product. It becomes a 360 degrees. It becomes managing a portfolio, etc.
Sure.
How should professionals keep pace with it, and how important is continuous learning in that context?
I think it's very important. Every person has to learn, and I think learning comes from different sources, and we find that the biggest learning comes from on-the-job training. So we expect our talent to play different roles. You wear a functional hat. You wear a job hat with the exact job you're doing. If you're a brand manager of a certain brand, you're managing that brand. You're a part of a function which is marketing, and you're a part of an organization. So you have organizational hat, which is Marico. So organizational hat, functional hat, and job hat. And increasingly, organization should give people exposure to the functional hat and the organizational hat. So if I'm a brand manager, if I am allowed to mingle, and if there are joint forums to discuss about different brands, that will improve my learning. I will also depend on the kind of freedom given to a person, And I find that Indian organizations are giving more empowerment because we don't have somebody else sitting at the headquarters calling all the shots. So empowerment is a very great way to learn. But for empowerment to happen, you have to have very good quality talent, They should be able to act on their own. And sometimes it's okay to make mistakes, so the culture also should encourage risk-taking and failures. And it's okay to make mistakes. So I think that's the most important part of learning. And then there is always that quest for learning through reading, interacting with thought leaders, attending training programs. I think overall, one has to go on learning until all your life, in my opinion.
What has your proudest moment been in this whole journey of Marico? I know you've had many successes.
I'm not able to single out one,
So could it be the fact that you stepped back and now you're helping so many entrepreneurs through Ascent? Looking back, what are the 2-3 things that you would want to define you?
I would say in terms of satisfaction, today I'm enjoying doing different roles, very diverse roles. So I look at Marico, I look at Kaya, but I do a lot of other things for the society, I've started some call center, to help poor and middle class, and I'm going to, in the whole area of mental health is something which I'm going to pursue. So these are very diverse views and I'm enjoying, but I wouldn't call that proud. I think proud would be anything to do with Marico, the day when we went public, the day, whatever, whenever we win awards, we've won more than 100 awards. So I think it just reinforces, but there is no one single moment I would say that it is the proudest.
It's been the journey.
It's the journey, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm going to ask you, a lot is changing. The marketplace is changing, the Indian economy is changing, and suddenly now, because of technology, so there's a huge change that's happening. Digital, e-commerce, even the back-end technology is playing a role. What are the buckets in which technology is changing the FMCG sector according to you?
So I think if you look at it externally and if you look at it internally, and you need to look at both. Externally, what is happening in the whole supply chain, sales area, there are huge changes happening. Huge changes in the modern retail scenario, in the e-commerce scenario, in the way consumer, especially the young customer, does his shopping, he does his information, finds out about the product. So the whole information needs for the consumer also have changed. So I think you need to be aligned with the changes, and the changes have just started, so they're going to accelerate. So you need to have a different way of handling changes. The current field force will not be able to handle the modern retail. They will not be able to handle the e-commerce. So you need to have different segments within your organization to address those challenges. And then there are other challenges like the digital challenge. How the whole platform will change over a period of time. Today we are a consumer product company, or FMC, fast moving. Tomorrow it could be a digital consumer company, So how the whole digital sensors is going to change future is something which we need to be aligned to. Nobody thought in taxis that Uber is going to come and just going to make big changes. So I think it's going to impact each and every industry.
So the next 5 years, the general sense is that technology is going to change every industry and the way we do business.
Yes, yeah.
Looking ahead, crystal ball gazing, what do you see happening in FMCG? Because already the distribution channels and the platform of distribution has changed in the last 2 years. How do you see it panning out, and how are you pacing yourself?
So you see marketing also, and a lot of investment is going to digital marketing, and so you need to have digital marketing experts. Earlier it was press, and then TV came in, now digital marketing. So I think it's change. I can't see an overnight change, but over a period of time, all these are going to accelerate one level, and the consumer habits also will change. So I think the rules will change, rules of success, and the organizations have to proactively invest in advance and predict how will it impact them, what can I do to actually make this as an opportunity. At this stage, I think what happened in terms of disruption, some player coming in from outside, I don't see that happening in the FMCG in a big way. There could be some disruption happening because the entry is easier for a player, new player. In the past,
it's happened in the mobile phone place, for instance, because so there the market has changed completely.
Correct. The entry is easier. Earlier days, you needed to have already distribution. Now you can tie up with some e-commerce, and you have some product. It can just start selling through those sites. So I think the barriers to entry will reduce for newer players, and the kind of advertising which was required may not be required. But so if you have something innovative, a business model or a product, I think he can enter and cause disruption.
What about areas like data analytics for you, for instance?
Yeah, I think
your entire back end and front end.
Yeah.
How is that playing a role?
I think it's very important. Now we have created a separate resource, analytics resource, which has to look at analytics differently. So whether it's all the input which are going into the trade schemes and things like which go, or to sales, or what goes into range selling, or distributors returns, or distributor stocking. So whole analytics is getting and then consumer analytics in terms of consumer buying habits, for example, we are big in hair oils. So what will be the future of hair oils over a period of time? Earlier we used to do some research from AC Nielsen and get that. Now we can back it up with a lot of other analytics also, So I'm saying that analytics has to be looked at it proactively, and every organization will have to be looking at analytics very, very seriously to address issues not only with the consumer but also at the back door.
I have one additional question on technology. For many Indian companies, it's going to be about survival, it's going to be about growth, and adapting and adopting technology is going to be key. You can look at technology in two perspectives. One is as a challenge. How do you surpass, or how do you control that beast which is technology? And the second is opportunity. How can you innovate using technology as a platform? Let's look at both these from Marico's point of view. As a challenge, how are you viewing it, and how will you deal with it? And as an opportunity, how are you seeing it?
So I think both, I would say, challenge and opportunity are challenge in terms of competitive threats. I said that's more a threat, I would say, but it is a challenge for us to go ahead, and that's why we've invested heavily into this in terms of recruiting some talent who are actually experts in this and proactively taking a lot of experiments in analytics. And we are going to form a task force now to look at all the digital impact, and we have to look at it 2-3 steps ahead. What is happening internationally? What is the impact of 4G on the consumer in other countries? So the whole mobile revolution is taking place. So what happens to mobile apps? So I think we have to look at it proactively, what is happening in other countries, and invest heavily, overinvest, take some risk, take some experiments, and get some new ideas, new insights to make an opportunity out of this.
Okay, so you're seeing both as a challenge and opportunity. How have you seen, you talk about India as a largely youth focused. Our demographics is average age 29, etc. How do you see the youth in India? Because you've seen the consumer change. And B, what's your advice for the youth in India to really succeed from what you have seen?
See, I think youth is at a national level. You'll have to segment it in different parts. So it depends what you're talking about. In smaller parts, rural areas, today's youth is, most of them are whiling away time. They don't know what to do. So I think there's a big need to skill them, get them employed, and ensure that they are gainfully employed, But if you're talking the urban youth, which I suppose you're talking about, I think the urban youth also is undergoing a huge change in terms of the kind of organization one wants to work for, very particular about what is the organization doing ethically, what is the organization doing from the point of view of environment, does the organization have a purpose. So I think it is forcing organizations to go in the right direction in terms of sustainability and all those other initiatives which the organization should anyway be doing from. I think the youth today is quite charged, and they may, when they work, they will be completely working for you, but
you have to inspire them too.
They have to inspire them, but the olden days, where you would expect the youth to continue for a longer period of time, that may not happen, The other trend we are noticing is that a lot of, especially in college where we go to recruitment, MBA schools, a lot of them want to become entrepreneurs, So they want to become entrepreneurs straight away, or they want to become entrepreneurs maybe after 2, 3, 4 years, So the key question is, what kind of organization should I be working for if I want to become an entrepreneur? My advice is that don't go and join large organizations. You have to be a big fish in a small pond, You have to go and join a small entrepreneur or a startup, because that's where you learn maximum. And for being an entrepreneur, you need to have a 360-degree view of what's happening in the organization. And if you're going into a company like Marico, you will get such a limited perspective if you are a part of a brand or a part of a sales team, that you'll never get that larger perspective, and you will take years and years. So if you want to lead a professional career, then it's okay to join. But if you want to go into a entrepreneur, go to a small organization or go to a consulting organization, I think the learning there will be much more for you to become an entrepreneur.
Sure. But I am going to spend 1 minute on the rural youth that you're talking about. It's a terrible state of affairs that we actually look at it, because there are no jobs over there. They're not well skilled either.
Correct.
Because they've not been able to partake of the changes that have happened in the education system. My question to you is, how important is skilling them? And second, can online become a very, very big tool to really fill that need gap?
See, I think skilling will depend again on the location you are in. And I think most rural youths and their family realize that going to big cities, it is expensive, because you need to stay in a place. And there is a certain reluctance for the family to send their kid to, say, Bombay. So if I'm presuming that if they have to be settled in that wherever they are located, skilling will have to be tailor-made to the opportunities in this area, and cannot be something which can be done independently. So what are the kind of jobs? For example, if you are near the sea, there will be a lot of opportunities in terms of fishing. Or if you are in an area where there are, say, 10 auto industry, then logically you can go into auto ancillaries. And then do skilling accordingly. So there may be certain jobs, or there are certain areas which can be done through online, but there will be some physical need also of training. So you could, I think, depending on what the need is, you'll have to get skill.
What about the educated, who are not employable because they don't have the skill sets? The last piece of connectivity is not there. How important is online education, you think, for that?
As I said earlier, depending on the kind of job you like to get into, a lot will depend in terms of online. Yes, but there will be certain areas where they can actually get, and there are certain jobs where you need to physically work on something, like a welder or whatever. You can't just do it through online, So a lot will depend on the ultimate where that person is going to get employed. But it's chicken and egg situation. Again, you need some industries to come in that area. You just kill them, and then there is no opportunity for them to work. They'll forget those skills. So it has to match, what is the need for a certain gap from the industry point of view, or wherever there are certain jobs, then what is the skill gap,
You advise a lot of entrepreneurs, and you've created an ecosystem for them to learn from each other. What's your advice to entrepreneurs to succeed, looking at your own experience? And has it become a little easier for entrepreneurs to do well?
Compared to the past, I would call it easier in terms of the ecosystem. You today have consultants, a host of consultants for finance, for HR. You have different types of funds giving you funds, whether it's a seed fund or angel fund or a VC or a private equity player. So there are opportunities for you to raise. But at the same time, the competition has increased compared to the past. So you need to have a viable proposition, what will make you win in the marketplace. And if you have a viable proposition, I think then there are no resource constraints, I think. Then you can get people, you can get funding. But if you don't have a good viable proposition, then to that extent you will just struggle,
Okay. I want to ask you for 2 bits of advice.
Yeah.
One, to a person who wants to sit in your shoes, basically be the chairman of a big company. And the second, who wants to be a CEO in your company. What would your advice be to these two sets of people?
I think, first of all, if you want to be the chairman, you need to, just the chairman, not managing director.
No, obviously, it's part of getting to the chairman.
So I think, basically you need to go through a certain, shall I say, experience to be perceived as I would call it as a thought leader, that your role is only influence others and not really operational role, and how can you add value at a chairman level, through influence, through talking, through writing, through whatever way. And how do you divide the role between you and the managing director? Because you don't want to step on somebody else's toe. At the same time, ensure that you are adding value. In my case, it's a bit different because I was also a promoter, So what is known as the founder's mentality? The founder has built a certain business. And there is a strong value to that founder's mentality, what he's brought to the table. So when the transition occurs when the founder steps down from a day-to-day role, how do you ensure that the founder's mentality continues, which is again a source of competitive advantage? How does it continue over a period of time? So you need to have the necessary framework to ensure that whether it's culture or the way you do things or identifying your products is continuing over a period of time, even when the chairman is not there.
Sure.
So, and if you want to become the MD, then basically you have to have a very strong, tight control in terms of what's happening.
I'm more talking about the journey up to becoming that, right?
Yeah.
For an entrepreneur to create a $1 billion company, I mean, that's the ambition of scale, of being able to think big, vision. What would your advice to him be? Or a young management graduate who wants to do
it? I think first of all, I presume that you have started a business and there is some traction for that business. So the business is there too. At least there is some future. You know that the business is going to succeed. But at various stages, you have to go on asking, when from small to medium to large, how do I need to change myself? Because most of the problems occur at the entrepreneur's end himself, not able to delegate, not able to take risk, not able to recruit talent, wrong leadership style. Because ultimately you need people, you need delegation, you need empowerment. And at the same time, you need to withdraw from what you're doing in the past. So you have to, every 10 years, I would say, you should ask, how can I make myself redundant in whatever I was doing? And give it to a person who will do a better job than me. And my role again will be to add value. And over a period of time, trust him and give him freedom. And that has to occur at multiple times. And then how do you create processes and systems to ensure that the organization goes on working on its own steam,
Your message for people on continuous education, the stress for continuous education, because that's a theme that's come time and again.
No, I think it's so basic at one level that, without continuous education, you will just fall down because, the whole world is changing, the environment is changing, and it's likely to change more and more. And unless you educate yourself in terms of what's happening to the environment, the likely impact of that on your business, you will just not be able to exist. So it's like a survival, yes.
Okay. And on UpGrad, I mean, the fact that, you're taking this whole education and skilling piece online to reach out to more people, what is your message for UpGrad?
So I think it's very good that we can actually use that model, that medium to train more people. It's far more, I would say, seamless. You can cover larger numbers. A lot depends again on the quality of UpGrad, but there's great opportunity in that space. And I think it's one way to look at large numbers. It's discontinuous learning again. So I would reckon that it has to play a very important role in future in terms of continuous learning.
Thank you so much.